I remember that night like it was yesterday, even though I'm 24 now and it happened when I was 10. My parents left me home with my 17-year-old brother, Zach. At first, I was excited, just me in the big house, which felt like pure freedom. Zach told me he was going out with friends for a few hours and made me promise not to tell mom and dad. I agreed because I trusted him, and honestly, why wouldn't I want the place to myself? He'd be in huge trouble if our parents found out, and he knew it. I ended up in the den, where I decided to watch a scary movie. Home alone at that age? Not the best idea, which I learned the hard way. I'd never been alone this long before, especially at night. Halfway through the movie, I started getting scared. Not entirely because of the film itself, but because of how the house sounded. The random creaks in the floor. The wind brushing against the windows. Even the fridge clicking on periodically. Every time the movie made a loud sound, I'd flinch and look over my shoulder toward the half-flight of stairs leading to the main floor, expecting to see someone there. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned off the TV and ran upstairs to my room like a scared little kid running from imaginary demons that follow you the second you turn off the lights. I went into the bathroom, the one connecting my room to my parents' bedroom, and brushed my teeth as fast as I could, trying to calm down. Then I played Call of Duty: Zombies on my Xbox 360, thinking it would make me less scared. I played for hours, losing track of time. When my team finally died, I got frustrated. It was late, so I decided to go to sleep. Not long after, I felt the vibration of the front door closing. I assumed it was Zach coming back. I lay there awake, listening to sounds of someone moving around downstairs. Which was odd. Usually when he got home, he'd go straight upstairs to his room. But these sounds went on too long. Subtle little footsteps. Indescribable thumps and thuds. My stomach started churning. That stupid scary movie was really getting to me. I got up and went to the window, expecting to see Zach's car in the driveway. It wasn't there. That's when real panic set in. I was only 12, no cell phone, no way to contact my parents or Zach without leaving my bedroom and going to one of the house phones. Which felt impossible at that moment. I tiptoed to my bedroom door to confirm it was locked, knowing the lock could be opened from the other side with just a fingernail. If someone wanted to get in, they easily could. I looked around and decided the only safe place was the small crawl-in closet built into my wall. I squeezed inside, shut the door carefully, and tried to calm myself as I listened. I remember hoping desperately that I was just being paranoid, that it really was Zach. Maybe he'd parked on the side of the house instead. Seconds later, I heard someone fumbling with my bedroom door. Then the door opened. Whoever it was stepped inside my room. I stayed completely still, listening to footsteps moving around, feeling the floorboards creak beneath someone's weight, hearing things being shifted. Every second felt like an eternity. I was terrified the closet door would open at any moment. I still prayed it was my brother, but I stayed quiet, barely breathing, hoping whoever it was would leave. At one point, I heard something being dragged across the floor. It felt like hours passed. Probably only minutes. Eventually, the footsteps receded. I stayed in that closet for what seemed like forever, probably 2 hours, until finally I heard Zach calling my name from across the house. His voice sounded urgent and pissed off. A few moments later, he came into my room and called my name again. I stepped out of the closet, and the first thing he did was yell at me, asking what I was doing in there and what I'd done to his room. That's when it hit me. It hadn't been my brother in the house. I explained the situation as fast as I could, still shaking, unable to stop my hands from trembling. Once he understood, we started looking around the house together. That's when we realized how bad it really was. Drawers had been pulled out. Electronics were missing, TVs, gaming consoles. Someone had been through the house and taken everything valuable. Zach called the police immediately. We waited together, still on edge, checking doors and windows to make sure nothing else was taken. The police came, filed a report, wrote down everything missing, and asked us questions. They told us they'd investigate and that we should wait for our parents to get home. Around 4 in the morning, our parents arrived. My dad was furious. He went straight for Zach and smacked him square in the face for being such a careless idiot, not only for leaving me alone, but for leaving the front door unlocked. My mom checked on me, gave me a hug, and told me she was just glad I was safe. Zach was forced to pay monthly rent from that point on to slowly pay back everything that was stolen. He was treated with extreme caution after that night. I wasn't punished at all. I was just shaken up, terrified of what had happened. The whole experience stuck with me for years. Every time I thought about it, I could feel the fear all over again. Remembering hiding in that closet, hearing someone walk around my room, not knowing if I'd make it out alive. It was by far the scariest experience of my life. And it has stayed with me even now. When I was just a child, not even in kindergarten, I lived with my grandparents. My parents had just separated, and my dad worked in the next town over, so I saw him every weekend. My uncle, my dad's brother, also lived with us, so I was rarely ever truly alone. I was always told never to answer the door for strangers. It was a small, peaceful town where everyone knew each other. We had a neighbor who visited often to watch hockey or wrestling or join family barbecues. I'll call him David. He was friendly with both my grandpa and my uncle. He often drank beers with my uncle and helped my grandpa with yard work or truck repairs. If my grandpa came home with a moose from hunting, he and David would haul it into the shed together. One night, I was briefly left home alone. My grandma was at bingo, and I'd called asking for a pickup. My grandpa told me he was going to get her and asked if I wanted to come. I refused because I was watching cartoons. He reminded me not to open the door for strangers, then left. As soon as I saw the truck pull away, the house got quiet. Only a few minutes later, someone knocked. I ran up and asked loudly who it was. David's familiar voice answered. I told him my grandparents weren't home, and he replied that he'd just seen my grandpa leaving. I told him my uncle wasn't home either, and he said he'd been talking to my uncle on the phone and knew he was out drinking at a friend's place. Then he asked to come in. I told him I wasn't allowed to open the door for strangers. He insisted he wasn't a stranger, he was our neighbor, someone I already knew. In my child mind, he was right. But I didn't understand why he'd come over when my grandpa and uncle weren't there. I unlocked the door and opened it. David towered over me. He was obviously drunk, swaying, slurring, squinting with one eye. He stepped inside and put his hands on my shoulders as I backed up. I didn't feel alarmed yet. I'd seen my uncle drunk many times. I told him he could wait in the kitchen while I went back to watch TV, but he wouldn't let go of my shoulders. I tried to pull his hands off me but couldn't. His voice changed. Filled with anger. He said things that frightened me. I can't remember the exact words now, only the fear they put in me. He dragged me into the kitchen and grabbed a large knife. He pressed the tip against my belly and asked if I wanted to be stabbed. When I cried, he told me to quiet down or he'd cut my tongue or my throat. He dragged the dull side of the blade across my throat to show he was serious. Then I heard my grandparents' truck pulling in. Car doors closed outside. Relief flooded through me. I was about to scream for help, but David clamped his hand over my mouth. He turned us both toward the doorway just as my grandma entered. Her smile vanished when she saw him holding me with a knife. She screamed for my grandpa to get inside immediately. My grandpa rushed in, yelling in shock and fury, demanding to know what was happening. He took one look at David holding me hostage and charged forward, shouting with pure rage. David shoved me to the floor. My grandma rushed over, grabbed me tightly, and blocked me from seeing what was happening while telling me I was safe. I could still hear the struggle. Eventually, my grandpa overpowered him. When I finally looked up, my grandpa was shoving David out the door, yelling at him to never come back, then slamming the door. As I grew up, I realized David had waited deliberately. He must have known my uncle wasn't home and that my grandma was at bingo. He'd seen my grandpa leave. That was his moment. I was too young to understand his intentions. Years later, after my grandpa's funeral, I sat with my grandma discussing memories. I brought up that night and how heroic grandpa had been. She looked uneasy. She said it was truly a terrifying night. Then she asked if I remembered that my grandpa went out hunting that same night. I faintly remembered him leaving. Hunting at night wasn't something he usually did unless it involved camping. When I asked why he left, she claimed she didn't remember much. It got me thinking. They never called the cops to press charges. And I never saw David again after that night. My grandpa was respected in the community, friends with police officers, known to be a good hunter. No one would question if they saw a bloody tarp in the back of his truck, driving out of town late at night. This happened a few years ago during spring break in 2020, when I was 15. I was home alone one night while my parents were out of town. Just hanging out in my room when I got a call from a mutual friend from school. I'll call him Mason. I don't usually get calls from Mason, but I answered anyway. Before I could say anything, he asked what I was doing. I told him I was just at home. He then asked if he could drop off one of my buddies because he needed a place to stay for the night. This buddy, I'll call him Neil, I'd known since 3rd grade. I told Mason I didn't feel like having company and just wanted to chill by myself. After hearing this, Mason practically begged me to let Neil stay. I could hear desperation in his voice. I was still reluctant, but then Mason said he'd let me use his weed pen if I let him drop Neil off. I caved and told them they could come over. Looking back, I realize how dumb I was to let something like that persuade me. But I was a stupid pothead at the time. So what can you do? Neil has always been outgoing, almost zero filter, doesn't care what others think. So when I'd heard from my brother and other friends the week prior that he'd started acting really weird in his classes, I didn't think much of it. I asked my brother to elaborate. He told me Neil would sometimes start laughing or clapping out of nowhere, even in a completely silent classroom. And he'd say very strange things to people, like claiming the basketball coaches were Freemasons trying to convert him. After hearing this, I realized Neil wasn't acting normal. But it wasn't until he and Mason arrived at my house that I understood how bad it really was. I met them at the front door and greeted them like any other day. I hit Mason's weed pen as promised and gave it back. As Mason was about to leave, he grabbed Neil by the shoulders in a very serious way, tears forming in his eyes, and pleaded with him not to do the thing. Neil looked at him blankly and casually responded that he understood. I really should have asked what was going on. But for some reason, I didn't. I let Neil inside as Mason left. After I closed the front door, the first thing Neil asked was whether all the doors in the house were locked. Red flags immediately went off in my head. I knew I'd just gotten into something bad. I told him they were locked and asked why. He asked me to check, so I led him down the narrow hallway by the front door to show him the back and laundry room doors were both locked. He didn't say anything after I confirmed it. We stood in silence for a few seconds. Then, out of nowhere, his hand shot up like he was raising it, and he put on this eerie, toothy smile that I can still see clearly in my mind. He held it for a few seconds before lowering his arm without saying a word. I forced a fake chuckle to make the situation seem less weird. Then Neil asked for some water, so we went to the kitchen. As I grabbed bottles from the fridge, I noticed him lingering by the silverware drawer. The one with the knives. I watched as he slowly opened it and reached for a steak knife. Without thinking, I ran over, grabbed his hand before he could take it, and slammed the drawer shut. Neil didn't react or move. He just stared at me and let out a chuckle, like he was pretending it was a joke. At that moment, I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. I was frozen in fear, the kind people describe in life or death situations. I'd never felt like my life was in danger until that moment. I could only focus on how I was going to get him out of my house. He finally broke the silence by suggesting we go to the neighborhood park. I agreed as if nothing had happened. We walked to the laundry room leading to the driveway, and I intentionally let him out first. I told him I needed to put shoes on, which I did. He paused, looked subtly disappointed, and told me to hurry up. I shut the door, locked it immediately, and called my brother to explain what had just happened. After finishing the call, I grabbed every knife in the kitchen and brought them upstairs to my room. Keep in mind, I was stoned at the time, so my decision-making wasn't perfect. But I knew I needed to prevent Neil from forcing his way back in. My brother arrived with 3 friends in less than 5 minutes. They met Neil outside. I stayed inside for a few minutes, nervous, then went out. My brother and friends were talking to Neil, who was rambling about the school's basketball coaches being in the Illuminati and claiming they would sexually assault the boys on the team to make them play better. He continued talking nonsense for a few minutes. Then we decided to get him home. There was no way I was letting him stay under my roof after what had happened. One of my friends eventually took Neil home, even though he insisted he couldn't go because he believed his dad was going to kill him. After all this, I called Mason to ask what Neil had said to him that made him act that way. Mason explained that during the car ride, Neil had been reading a manifesto claiming he needed to kill himself or someone else to prevent his dad from trying to kill him. Mason had panicked and just wanted to get rid of Neil. Which explained why he'd sounded so desperate to drop him off at my house earlier. After hearing this, I lost my mind. I asked Mason why he would just dump Neil at my house without warning me. Though I knew part of the fault was mine for not asking sooner. Later, it was revealed that Neil had taken drugs he shouldn't have, which triggered schizophrenic episodes and caused him to hear voices. About a month later, I told my mom the story. She was not thrilled, to put it lightly. Needless to say, I avoided something truly horrific that night by being on edge when Neil entered the house. I still think about what could have happened if I hadn't paid attention to him in the kitchen. The figure in the window. I was 10 years old when this happened. My mom had gone grocery shopping that day and asked if I wanted to come. I remember making a big stink about not wanting to. It was a warm, sunny afternoon, and I just wanted to stay home and shoot hoops in the street. I told her nothing bad would happen, that she'd only be gone for a couple of hours. She finally gave in and let me stay. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed the old basketball from the garage and started shooting around in the street where we had a hoop set up. I played for a while, doing little games with myself, pretending I was down by one with a buzzer shot. I was sweating a little from running back and forth, and at one point I stopped to catch my breath. I bounced the ball lazily and looked around the neighborhood. That's when I looked up toward the house. At the upstairs window, someone was staring down at me. At first, it was just a shadow behind the glass, like someone standing back from the sunlight. I stared for a good second or two before the shape shifted slightly, and I realized it wasn't some trick of the sun. Someone was up there at the window, looking out at the street. None of my family was supposed to be home. My sister was at college. My dad was at work. My mom was across town buying groceries. I dropped the basketball without meaning to. The window was my sister's room. The blinds were half open, and the figure was right behind them. I say figure because that's all I saw. No distinguishable features. I didn't know what else to do except run inside and see who was home. I ran around the side of the house and through the backyard gate. I burst inside and slammed it shut behind me. I yelled up the stairs, asking who was home. My voice cracked when I yelled it. For a second, I didn't hear anything. Then a voice answered from upstairs. It said, "Red, come upstairs." It wasn't my mom. It wasn't my sister. It wasn't my dad. It was deeper than any of their voices, but not deep like a grown man trying to sound scary. It sounded like someone trying to sound normal. I didn't go anywhere near the stairs. I ran straight through the house, grabbed the house phone off the kitchen counter, and sprinted back outside as fast as I could. I called my mom and told her someone was in the house. She didn't believe me at first. She told me that wasn't something to joke about. She said she was almost done shopping. But I started crying into the phone, telling her I wasn't joking, telling her I heard someone call my name from inside, that they were at the upstairs window. She finally believed me when I started sobbing and begging her to come home. She said she was leaving the store right now. After she hung up, she must have called the police, because a cop car pulled up at the same time my mom's car turned into the driveway. She ran to me, asking where I saw the person. I pointed to the upstairs window. The police went in first. My mom followed them inside after a minute or two. I waited out front. I didn't want to go back in there. For 10 minutes, I just stood there staring at the upstairs window. No one appeared at it again. Eventually, one of the officers came out and told me it was safe to come inside. I went in and pointed upstairs to the room where I saw the man. They checked the closets, under the bed, behind the dresser. They even checked the attic. They checked every room in the house. They didn't find anyone or anything. After the police left, my mom started acting doubtful again. She said she believed me, but I could tell she didn't fully. She said if she found out I was messing around, I'd be punished for scaring her and wasting the police's time. I kept telling her I wasn't lying. She kept saying she knew, but her voice said something else. That night, I had trouble falling asleep. I kept thinking about the voice and that shadow behind the blinds. But eventually I got tired enough to drift off. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. It was still dark out. At first I thought I'd woken from a bad dream, but then I heard something in my room, just loud enough to wake me. I sat upright in my bed. My eyes were still adjusting to the dark, but I could see the outlines of my room. My dresser. My closet door cracked open. My shelves. And across the room, not far from my bed, I saw something else. An unfamiliar shape. A tall, dark shape standing completely still. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. But then the slightest movement made me realize what it was. It was a person. A full-grown person standing in my bedroom. I didn't even have time to breathe. I just screamed. A loud, broken scream that tore out of my throat. As soon as I screamed, the figure moved fast. It darted across my room in 2 steps, grabbed my window, slid it open, and jumped out. I heard his feet land on the small awning below the window. My parents burst into the room as soon as I screamed. My dad ran straight to the window and looked out. Then he ran downstairs and out the back door to try to find whoever it was. I'm fairly certain he ran out there barefoot. He came back a few minutes later, out of breath. He kept shaking his head and saying he didn't see anyone. They called the police again, but that time it was mostly just to file another incident report and for the cops to scout the area. We don't know how long he was in the house. All I know is he was inside during the day long enough to know my name. He was watching me from my sister's window. And he stayed in the house until nightfall. Or maybe he snuck in and out through my bedroom window by climbing up on that awning. Either way, he was in my room while I slept. Standing there in the dark. Who knows what else he did while he was in the house? That's the scariest part.